Children need to be told, say told, and shown, say shown, that they are loved, and they need to be told and shown very often. We say to this one, you had an A, how come you got a C? Don't ever do that. Take each child into the room and sit with them and go through their grades with them. Let it be a secret between you and them. Bring the other child and do the same. If you want to see a child blossom, if you want to see a child fulfill his or her full potential, then create an atmosphere of love around them.
Welcome to Maximize Life, the television broadcast from New Wine Church, London. Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Our mandate is to challenge you to be all you can be. So get ready to be encouraged, enriched, and empowered. You will never be the same again. Now here is your host, Pastor Michael Olawore.
Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast today. This is Maximize Life, where we encourage you to be all that you can be. I am Michael Olawore, your host and the senior pastor of New Wine Church. Today, we are looking at another life-transforming message by Dr. Tayo Adeyemi, the founding pastor of New Wine Church, who has gone home to be with the Lord. Today's message is titled, Creating an Atmosphere of Love. I am sure it will encourage you, it will enrich you, and without fail, it will empower you. God bless you.
Today we want to examine the first of what I consider to be the power twins of positive parenting. What did I call it? The power twins of positive parenting. I want to talk to you this morning, ladies and gentlemen, about creating an atmosphere of love in your home and around your children. Every living thing has a natural environment in which it thrives. Who says amen to that? Every living thing has a natural environment in which it thrives. Potatoes thrive in a cold climate, in a temperate climate. Pineapples thrive in a warm tropical climate. Polar bears will not survive in Africa. Lions will not survive in Alaska. By the same token, children thrive in an atmosphere of love. If you want to see a child blossom, if you want to see a child fulfill his or her full potential, then create an atmosphere of love around them. Now, every parent would like to believe that they do create an atmosphere of love in their homes and for their children, but today I would like you to see that there is a difference between loving your children and creating an atmosphere of love around them. Did you catch that? There is a difference between it is possible to love your child and still not create an atmosphere of love. The truth of the matter is a lot of parents do not know how to create an atmosphere of love for their children because they themselves were never raised in that kind of atmosphere. If many of us will be honest today, we will agree that many of our parents never really expressed their love for us. And you see, it is very difficult for you to model something that has not been modeled for you. Many homes of people sitting under the sound of my voice this morning were infested with all kinds of pain and all kinds of tension. Issues of sibling rivalry, issues of tension between the parents themselves. Some people, especially those who come from an African background, grew up in what is known as a polygamous home or a polygamous environment. That simply means a home where there is more than one wife. And those kind of homes are characterized with a lot of tension and contention. Every wife trying to gain the upper hand, a lot of suspicion, and definitely a lot of rivalry. Sometimes people go to ridiculous extents to harm themselves or to gain that advantage or edge over the other people in that kind of environment. Now, if you grew up in that kind of environment, it becomes a big challenge for you to model an atmosphere or create an atmosphere of love in your own particular environment. Now, before I continue, let me show you why it is extremely important that we create an atmosphere of love for our children. In May 1970, a gentleman by the name Rennie Spitz, a physician in New York, Dr. Rennie Spitz, reported on a certain report reported on a certain study that was conducted a number of years before that. Now, I think if that study is conducted today, it will be considered illegal. But I'll tell you what happened. They took a group of 239 children and they divided them into two groups right from infancy. And they were placed in two separate children's homes, two separate children's institutions. Now, both institutions were identical in all physical respects. Same housing conditions, same food, same hygienic standards in both homes, same expertise in the staff that took care of the children. The only difference was that in one home, the children were shown a lot of love. And in the other home, they were completely emotionally starved. Now, the first home was referred to as the nursery. Of course, you know the word nursery comes from the root word as the same root word as words like nurture, nourish, or even nurse. All right? And the second home was called foundling home. A foundling, just in case you don't know, is an abandoned infant whose parents are not known. So one was called, say it with me, nursery. The other was called foundling home. Foundling, if you're making notes. Now, the results of that particular study were totally astonishing. In the nursery, all, without exception, all the children had normal development, or in fact, in some cases, above average development. However, in foundling home, with the exception of one or two children, the 91 children who survived became human wrecks, emotional wrecks. In the words of one of the people who conducted the test, the children behaved in the manner of either agitated or apathetic idiots. Those were their words. In nursery, all the children survived. In foundling home, there was a 37% mortality rate. 37% of the children actually died. Ladies and gentlemen, when children are born, in by far the majority of cases, I don't want to say in all cases because there are some exceptions to this statement I'm about to make, but in by far the majority of cases, the parents love the child unconditionally. Who knows what I'm talking about? It's not something you have to work up. It's not something you have to make happen. The moment the child is born, it's automatic. It just kicks in. There is an instant natural bond of love between the parent and the child, especially between the mother and the child. Now, as a child begins to grow up, the child also instinctively loves and trusts its parent. Automatically. Toddlers take it for granted that their parents will love them. Is that true? But as the child gets older, the child begins to question all his assumptions, including the love of the parents for the child. Now, at the same time, I want you to follow the scenario. I'm trying to build a picture for you here. At the same time, as the child begins to get older, as parents, you start to prevail on the child to do the things they don't want to do. Ranging from eating their food to doing their piano lessons, ranging from going to school on a test day when they don't want to go, to going to bed on time. You begin to almost force your children to do certain things they don't want to do. And that's your duty as a parent. That's your responsibility as a parent. As a matter of fact, the reason why you do that is because you love the child. Is that true? Because you love the child. You make the child do things that the child doesn't want to do. Now, at this time of the child's life, remember, he's beginning to question everything. When you do that, the child receives conflicting signals. Because in his head, and I use, you hear me just say he's all the time, you know I'm referring generically here. In the child's head, he's beginning to say, how can she, my mom, do this to me if she really loves me? Hello? Now, in your own heart, as a parent, without verbalizing it, you are saying to the child, I am doing this to you because I really love you and I want the best for you. But the problem is that we assume that the child knows that. Somehow we assume that the child ought to know that the reason you're forcing him to eat is because you love him. But how is he supposed to know? Now, to make matters worse, notice that as your children get older, the slack reduces. The younger children, you cut them a lot of slack. You give them a lot of latitude. But as the children get older, you become more strict with them. You become more severe in your expectations and your guidance over their lives. And guess what? As they get older, you assume even more that they know that you love them. So you communicate it even less. Inadvertently, without realizing it, we have failed to create an atmosphere of love. Ladies and gentlemen, hear this now. Never assume that your children know that you love them. You have a responsibility to communicate. Say communicate. To communicate it, and you have a responsibility to demonstrate it. Say communicate. Say demonstrate. Children need to be told, say told, and shown, say shown, that they are loved, and they need to be told and shown very often. Let me share with you right now 2 key benefits of creating an atmosphere of love for your children. Number 1, it builds their confidence in themselves. If you want your child to develop a healthy self-esteem, communicate to the child, demonstrate to the child that you love him. When a child knows that he is loved, not for what he does, but for who he is ready to take on a hostile world. Who says amen to that? Your child's self-esteem and self-confidence is given an amazing boost when he has no doubt about your love for him. He's willing to stand alone. He's willing to go against the flow because he's getting all the love he needs from home. The reason why children succumb to peer pressure, the reason why children cave in under pressure outside is because they're looking for love and acceptance, and many times it's because they have not received it or they feel that they don't have it from their homes. Ladies and gentlemen, would you agree with me that we live in a society that is success oriented? And so the people who are celebrated are the people who achieve. They're the people who have a lot of money. Your love prepares your child to fail successfully. Let me explain that. Settle it in your heart. At one point or another in the life of your child will fail. Now, there are some people who fail woefully, and there are some people who fail successfully. Did you catch that? There are some people, when they fail, because of the inner resolve and inner strength that they have built, because of a strong constitution that they have, they can handle the failure and in fact use the failure as a springboard to future success. But a child who has not been shown unconditional love, a child who considers himself to be loved only for what he can achieve, then feels a sense of lack of self-worth when he fails. And so he is affected badly by the failure. Is that making sense to you? Amen. Now, it's important that we love our children. Number 2, the second benefit of creating an atmosphere of love is that it builds your child's confidence not only in himself, but also in you. Your unconditional love for your children assures them that they can come to you about any matter. How many of you parents have ever been in the situation where you found that your child was holding something back from you and you were disappointed? Because you thought, why couldn't you come and tell me? You know why? They didn't feel confident to come and tell you. That's why. Are you hearing me? Now, that may be their own fault, but also it may be because that atmosphere have not been created. When your child has confidence in you, they don't hide things from you. They can trust you to understand their struggles. They can trust you to accommodate their failures and their mistakes. Are you learning something today? Now, let me share with you 5 qualities of an atmosphere of love. 5 qualities of an atmosphere of love. In order to successfully create an atmosphere of love, your love must be, number 1, unconditional. Say unconditional. Now, all through their lives, your children will be accepted or rejected, just as I said earlier, on the basis of how they perform. People will in quote, love them or not because of what they can offer or deliver. Their toys, their looks, their skills, their money, and the list goes on. Very quickly, your child will discover that this is the way the world works. Now, it is your job, it is your responsibility as a parent to create the exception to that rule. Are you following me? You have the responsibility to give loud and clear to your children the message that says, I love you because I love you, because I love you, because I love you, because I love you. That's all there is to it. No strings attached. How many times as parents have we warmed up to a child when the child performs well in school? And we've been cold to the child when the child did not perform well in school. You know what we're saying? We're saying to the child, I love you only when you do well. Exactly what the whole world tells the child. But you have the responsibility as a parent to say to your child, I love you when you are good. I love you when you are bad. I love you when you listen to me. I love you when you disobey me. I love you when you get good grades. I love you when your grades are not so good. Say unconditional. Secondly, your love must be impartial. Now, this would refer to a family that has more than one child in it. One of the greatest recipes, listen to this, one of the greatest recipes for a lifetime of enmity between your children is to play favorites. Is to show one child that you love them more than the others. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a luxury you cannot afford. You cannot afford to communicate either overtly or implicitly to any of your children that they are better or worse than the rest of them. In fact, you are not allowed, hear this now, hear this, you are not allowed to have a favorite in your head or in your heart. Come on now, let's be honest. Just as it is difficult to love unconditionally, it's difficult not to prefer one child to the other. Because, hey, you have 3 children, one of them always listens to you, one of them listens to you sometimes, one of them never listens to you. It's easy to like the one that always listens to you. And then the one that always listens to you is the one that does well in school. Very, very easily, even if you don't communicate it, you could have it in your head. And the moment you accommodate it in your head, it will show somehow. How many of you remember Isaac's family, Isaac and Rebekah's family? They had 2 boys, twins, Jacob and Esau. Now, how many of you know that was a terribly dysfunctional home? You know one of the reasons why? The father loved one child for certain reasons, the mother loved the other for certain reasons. Esau was a manly man. He was a macho man. He was a hunter. He was a handyman. He was the guy who did all the DIY work in the house and cleaned up the garden. And his dad loved him for that because he used to kill game and bring it to his father. It's in the Bible. And so the guy loved him because he used to hunt and bring meat. Jacob, on the other hand, was like a CC. He was an elegant man, almost like, we will call them some particular names nowadays. He was like that. Well manicured fingers and he waved his hand and that's the kind of guy he was. And he was the guy whose toiletry bag was bigger than his mom's toiletry bag. And he had a cream for his hands, another one for his nose, another one for... That's the kind of guy he was. And for some reason, his mother liked him because of that. And both of them polarized their home because they had a favorite child. My friend, you cannot afford to have a favorite child. Let me share this with you. Don't ever compare one child to another. Are you hearing me? Don't discuss any of your children's academic performance in the front of their other siblings. We do that. We say to this one, you had an A. How come you got a C? Don't ever do that. Take each child into the room and sit with them and go through their grades with them. Let it be a secret between you and them. Bring the other child and do the same. Now, when you discuss their grades openly, you make one develop an attitude of superiority or inferiority in comparison to the other. You make one feel insecure around the other. The weaker child, and before long, even amongst themselves, they know the weaker one. They know the one that is not academically inclined. Now, I use academics as an example. It could be anything. And the weaker child feels insecure already as it is. And then you take it and you rub it in its nose, you are looking for trouble. That reference I made to Jacob and Esau, you will find in Genesis 25, verse 28. Are you learning something this morning? Number 3, your love must not only be unconditional and impartial, it must be consistent. Your demonstration of love for your children must never be based on your moods or circumstances. How many of you know that when things are going well, it's easy to express your love? When you feel good, it's easy to express your love. How many of you would confess, parents, that you have been in a bad mood sometimes? Everybody gets in a bad mood sometimes. Now, you cannot allow yourself to communicate love only when you feel good. It must be communicated consistently. Listen, it takes a long time for the message to register. And so it must be communicated over and over and over and over and over again. So it must be unconditional, it must be impartial, it must be consistent. Number 4, your love must be spoken. Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 most powerful words, hear this, the 3 most powerful words that any parent can speak to their child are, I love you. Say it with me. Let me tell you a story. There was a lady who she was a single parent, and she had 2 children, one a 9-year-old and one about a 5-year-old. And you have not seen 2 underdeveloped children like this. These children were mentally backwards. They were academically backwards. They reverted back to infantile behavior. Terribly dysfunctional children. Next to zero communication between the mother and the children. And she used to listen to a radio program, and she would hear a preacher say over and over again, tell your child that you love him. Tell your children that you love them. She had these 2 girls, and after a long time, now she couldn't say it because she was never told, I love you, by her parents. But one evening, they sat in the living room. The older one sat on the seat opposite her. The little one sat on the floor. And she just opened her mouth and said, I love you. Almost forced herself to say it. It was like there was a spring on the chair that the 9-year-old sat on. The child sprang up from the seat, shot across the room, threw her arms around her mother, and gave her a big hug. And the little one jumped up and came, and the 3 of them had a family hug, and they all started crying and did not stop for 1 hour. This lady reported that this was the first time she ever hugged any of her daughters. She said they felt like logs of wood. They were so rigid, it was so difficult. So from that day, she decided that every morning and every evening, she would tell the children, I love you. She said initially it was extremely difficult. They were not responding. But in the space of weeks, those children had blossomed. Their mental capacity had increased. Their academic performance had gotten better. All of their dysfunctional mannerisms and habits were totally wiped away. Ladies and gentlemen, all on account of 3 words. I love you. Have you noticed how many times in the Bible God tells us that he loves us? So your love for your children must be spoken. Tell them several times a day that you love them. Number 5, the 5th thing that your love must be, it must be unconditional, it must be impartial, it must be consistent, it must be spoken, and finally, it must be demonstrated. So not only must you speak it, you must put it into action. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where the rubber hits the road. Amen? Love is only effective when it is put into action.
I trust that this message has enriched you and challenged you to be all that you can be. If you have any question or comments or prayer requests about what you have heard today, do not hesitate to contact me using the details on your screen, and I will be glad to serve you as best as I can. Also, if you happen to be in or visiting the London, Essex or Kent area of the United Kingdom, we encourage you to feel free to worship with us at New Wine Church. All our service details are on your screen right now. Well, till the next time on Maximize Life, stay blessed.
We hope you have been blessed by today's broadcast. For more details about the dynamic ministry of Dr. Tayo Adeyemi, please contact us using the details on your screen or visit newwine.co.uk.
Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
We have a God-given responsibility to raise our children to be godly. Not only that, to raise them to be champions.
Order Pastor Tayo's teaching series, The Power of Positive Parenting, raising your children to be champions from infancy to independence, and learn the true meaning of Proverbs 22 verse 6, 4 practical ways to demonstrate your love, 3 things parents must teach their children, 7 no-go areas of discipline, and more.
Every child since the beginning of time has always tested the boundaries that the parents create. And if you let them get away with it, you set yourself and the child up for a lifetime of grief and pain.
This 6-part series is available on audio cassette, video, CD, and DVD. This series covers various aspects of parenting, including adoption, dealing with special needs children, hyperactive children, the single parent situation, and more. To order, call 020-88-555-888 or write to Maximize Life, Gateway House, John Wilson Street, Woolwich, London, SE18 6QQ.
If you want to see a child blossom, if you want to see a child fulfill his or her full potential, then create an atmosphere of love around them.
The Power of Positive Parenting, raising your children to be champions from infancy to independence, a must for every parent.